Welcome back, Mando.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tagar. Welcome to our 374th, delightfully dedicated to the Dark Troopers episode of MandoVision. And I am your host, Narguy Tom. Thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on those socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, MandoVision at Blue Sky, and of course, you can email me, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back a little later than we planned, because here we now find ourselves in the week of Mandalorian and Grogu, the return of Star Wars to the cinemas for the first time since The Rise of Skywalker, capped off the sequel trilogy. And again, a movie that maybe you're a fan of, maybe you're not, but regardless, the facts don't lie. That is the last Star Wars film to have graced us in the cinemas. And now with The Mandalorian and Grogu, we return to the theaters. And I think my excitement has gone up in the past couple of weeks as we sort of build to this, as we get closer to the day. And I think a small part of that has been rewatching The Mandalorian on Disney+. It's been a delightful journey back. When these episodes came out, I watched them multiple times within the week with which they came out. But I hadn't really done an organized rewatch of the show kind of since then. I'd go back every now and then and watch certain episodes or certain sections of certain episodes. Just to kind of remind myself of some of the tone, some of the situations and settings and things like that. But sitting down and watching the show has been a delight. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about going back and rewatching season 2 of The Mandalorian. And I'll be honest, I don't want to spend a lot of time with the preamble because I don't have a lot of other new Star Wars stuff to say. Obviously, the news going on right now is very Star Wars and Mandalorian forward. So, yeah, there's all kinds of things going on. There's interviews and press releases and the cast on talk shows and things like that. A lot of cast members last week were surprising guests at Disneyland as they would be there on like the rides and things like that. Now, all very, very neat, but let's be perfectly honest, they're promoting their movies. They want you to go see The Mandalorian and Grogu, and they want you to say nice things about it to your friends and family so that they will go and see it as well. And that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I understand the machine. I know how it works, and I get it. But yeah, so everything is very focused on The Mandalorian and Grogu. Dave Filoni's talked about some. Dave Filoni's a very guarded man, so he's sort of alluded to some of the future of Star Wars without really saying much of anything. But, it's one of those if you read between the lines, he's saying this. And sure, fine, whatever. We'll get the future of Star Wars when they give us the future of Star Wars. And I really just want to spend our time focusing on rewatching this great show. So, that being said, let's go ahead and do that. And you know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
All right. The Mandalorian Season 2. Simply put, I think this is cinema. I think it is outstanding Star Wars. And I loved rewatching the second season of the show. The main differences between the first and second seasons are not so much a leap in sort of confidence of the show, but I think in that first season, it's fair to say that there was a certain question of, will this work? That's not a question in the second season. In the second season of the show, they're like, we know this works, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing because we got a great story, and we're telling that story. And it's very noticeable. Like I said, there's a confidence about it. There's a self-assuredness in the second season that's outstanding, and it permeates every episode of the show. Again, I like the bulk of the first 8 episodes in season 1, and I feel the same way about this season as well. I think these 8 episodes are probably pound for pound better if you wanted to do a sort of ranking on them. But again, I think it's because there is sort of a confidence and a comfort with what they're doing and a belief that what they're doing is going to work. And you notice that right from the jump with the first episode, The Marshal. And we come out of the gates hot with this episode because this is a big time episode. This is a fun episode. And yeah, again, of course, we go back to Tatooine, but that's what we do. This show is it has a lot of the trappings of the familiar, of what is known to us Star Wars fans. And listen, I'll be honest, like, yeah, I've kind of wrung my hands about that in the past. Like, oh gosh, we go to Tatooine all the freaking time. But we're doing different things on Tatooine. And one of the things that The Mandalorian has done really, really well in this season, they do in the first season, they do it really well in this season, and we'll talk about it soon, but they do it even better in the one and only season of the Book of Boba Fett. But that is the treatment of the Tusken Raiders, the Sand People. The sort of pivot from treating them as sort of like the hillbillies of Tatooine into like these noble, respected, the indigenous people of Tatooine, I think is it's a tremendous step forward, and something I really embrace, because we've gotten a lot of great stuff about the Tuskens through a lot of the expanded universe. Knights of the Old Republic had a great section of the game where you're on Tatooine and you're interacting with the Sand People and Krayt Dragons, and John Jackson Miller's Kenobi book also does a great job of talking about the Sand People as more than just sort of like mindless raiders, right? Like there's like a culture there. There's a people there. There's beliefs and their perspective on what's going on Tatooine that I think is really important. And the treatment of the Tusken Raiders in this show, in this first episode, where it's moisture farmers and miners working together with the Tuskens to defeat a Krayt Dragon, is awesome. It is awesome. And again, this episode also strongly hints at what was teased in in season 1, the return of Boba Fett, because we have the introduction of Cobb Vanth, played by the great Timothy Olyphant, rocking Boba Fett's sand-scarred armor, the familiar armor of Boba J. Fett. I made up the J. So we come out of the gates hot, and this is a great episode. It's a lot of fun. There's good stuff here. You got Mando and Cobb Vanth flying around in jetpacks, shooting Krayt Dragons. It's really well done. It starts off the season on a really strong note. And again, this is sort of what we talked about a little bit when we got to the end of season 1, yes, still kind of self-contained episodes in a sense, but there's the overarching story, and we are starting to pull back and see more of the galaxy that Din Djarin and Grogu inhabit. Specifically in this episode, it's Vanth telling the story of what happened in Mos Pelgo when the Empire fell, with the sort of, they were tyrants, but those tyrants sort of kept other nefarious people in check. And like the way the Mining Guild moves in on Mos Pelgo and things like that. And so we're starting to see that sort of fallout from the strict order of the Empire to the sort of lawlessness, chaos of the new burgeoning Republic. And how it's felt in places in the Outer Rim, like Tatooine. Again, I don't want to harp on the episode too much. I know we're kind of focused on that one at the moment, but it's just a really strong opening for season 2. We get another great episode. I like the next episode too. It's a logical progression. Mando's trying to remember our overarching story here. Mando's trying to find Jedi to pass off Grogu to, so he's sort of sniffing around, and so he believes that he has to find other Mandalorians who've been out there who probably could put him on the path. And that's why he ends up on Tatooine. Reports of a Mandalorian on Tatooine. And we come across Cobb Vanth in Boba's armor. Then we progress, right? Oh, this character who needs a lift to her planet. Well, not her planet, but the planet where her husband's at. He's seen Mandalorians on the world he's on. So if you can give her passage, we're going to get you over there. Well, cool. But we get a little bit of a side trip, right? It's a little bit, again, the show gets knocked for its sort of like side quest philosophies. It doesn't play that way to me. I go along with the ride. I go along for the journey. So when we have Frog Lady and Mando getting stuck on that ice planet with the ice spiders, again, calling back to some great Ralph McQuarrie concept art, I dig it. And we're getting to explore, again, a little bit more of the New Republic presence in the Outer Rim and how they're trying to sort of police things. And that will eventually lead us to the third installment in in season 2, which is the introduction of live-action Bo-Katan. And this is a fun episode to watch because it's Bo-Katan's appearances in season 2, I think, are very interesting. Katie Sackhoff is great. Don't get me wrong. But I think you can tell when you rewatch this first live-action introduction of Bo-Katan, she doesn't quite have it just right yet. But it's interesting to see how that progresses by the time we catch up with her later in the season. So a big episode, and this episode obviously points us to another big character stepping forward into live action. There are a couple of little things and that I was reminded of in watching this episode, because again, this is Mando's first time interacting with people outside of his coverts. So he's interacting with Mandalorians who do take their helmets off, and how he views that as sort of like sacrilege. And remember, these were important things at the time, because we had all these questions. We're like, what is going on? Like, why is Din Djarin and his Mandalorians, why are they so living in their buckets? And when we realize that, Bo-Katan gives us some vital information that he is a child of the Watch. They're basically like a cult. And these are important things. We're trying to fill in some vital background information. And they're going to team up with Din to get an Imperial ship because, Bo-Katan has designs on taking Mandalore back. And again, we hear that Mandalore's been pretty much trashed since Moff Gideon and the Night of 1,000 Tears and all these things. It's good stuff. A great introduction. And Bo-Katan eventually points us to Ahsoka Tano. And now we don't go straight to Ahsoka Tano. We have to go back to Navarro for the next installment of the series and take care of an old Imperial base where there's nefarious things happening as well. And a great episode. Carl Weathers, Gina Carano coming back. And you can't help but be reminded that there were plans for a, what was it going to be called? Rangers of the New Republic, something like that. With Gina Carano and Carson Teva and this whole thing of the Republic's presence in the Outer Rim. And then all these things kind of went away for various reasons. And I don't want to necessarily recap all that stuff. But it was another reminder that, in the time that Disney's owned Star Wars, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that they've announced more things than they've actually made. So just another reminder, because again, they set up the Gina Carano's character pretty well for the spin-off thing. And it's a kind of a shame we never got it, but people do things that anger other people, and then things go away, whether right or wrong. That's just sort of the world. But a great action episode of the series. I do think the action in that episode, The Siege, is really, really strong. Carl Weathers directs the heck out of that episode. Well done. But then we make our way to Ahsoka Tano, to the inevitable hey, you're a Jedi. Take this child. He's one of yours. And this is an episode, it's very Dave Filoni-esque because Dave loves to not give us information. He loves to keep things close to his vest. And I'll never understand some of the things. Again, going back, now don't forget, I had just rewatched Ahsoka Season 1 a few months ago. So going back to the first introduction of Morgan Elsbeth was very interesting for me. They definitely allude to the possibility that she is a Night Sister, but they never come out and say it. And again, I'm sort of like, why don't we just come out and say it? Is it too much? Are you holding that back because you think it's too much for the non-initiated Star Wars fan? Why is Morgan Elsbeth's introduction so unusual? We find out again that she is she's built a fleet of starships for the Empire, but why is she on this planet? What does this have to do with anything? Is this sort of like her home base? But it doesn't seem to be anywhere remotely connected to her shipyards. So again, there's just little questions like that, and Dave is very evasive when it comes to these things. Same thing with Ahsoka, because the Mandalorian is just like, hey, you're a Jedi, right? And all Ahsoka has to do is say, no, actually, just some stuff went down, and I don't really party like that anymore. But it's again, everything has to be so vague and mysterious. And I don't butt my head up against it. It's just sort of is what it is. But again, I think you could, and again, I guess from a storytelling perspective, you don't have that whole thing because you're keeping it simple for the uninitiated. And maybe that plays better. Maybe that makes sense. Again, I get it. I understand. But it's one of those situations where you're just like, all right, can we just say what we need to say instead of acting? I don't know. Again, it's a nit. It's the tiniest of nits that I'm picking with this because again, season 2 of the show is cinema, and it's a great episode that introduces Ahsoka in live action. Chapter 13, The Jedi. Great stuff. And again, at this point, where this is 5 episodes of season 2, and they've all been great to this point. And then we get to the last 3, which are so flipping good that I still found myself just captivated and on the edge of my seat the entire time. The tragedy where Grogu is abducted from Tython on the Seeing Stone. Again, the introduction of Tython even. That's great stuff. The reintroduction of Boba Fett, I think, is spectacular and extremely well done with the great directorial vision of Robert Rodriguez. Again, we'll talk about the Book of Boba Fett down the road. But when Boba comes back in this episode and they're teaming up against those stormtroopers, he is merciless. He is borderline savage when he's fighting these dudes. It's awesome. It's got this real cool primal energy to it. I mean, he's smashing these guys with his Gaddafi stick, and just smashing their plastoid stormtrooper helmets into nothing. It's nothing. It's crazy. It's so good. And then of course the abduction of Grogu at the hands of Dark Troopers. Again, Dark Troopers were teased. That's fine. But to see him in action, that was cool. That was real cool. So loved it. And then we go to the next chapter, which is The Believer. Because now Mando has to figure out how to get Grogu back from the clutches of Moff Gideon. And he's going to use... I already blanked on his name. But one of the characters we were introduced to in season 1, when they were storming the prison ship, of course, we're talking about Mayfeld, played by Bill Burr. So Mando needs Cara Dune's help to get him out of Republic prison so that they can infiltrate an Imperial base because they need access to a command terminal so they can find out where Moff Gideon's at. And they're doing all this stuff with listen, it's just a great episode. I don't need to recap it for you. It's intense stuff. The run that they're on with the explosive fuel, being attacked by local terrorist cells who don't want the Empire on their world. It's all awesome. It's super good stuff. And then of course the Mandalorian making the big decisions, right? And he's like, well, I gotta impersonate this Imperial officer. I guess I can trade one bucket for another. No one's seen my face. Until we have to see his face. And the Mandalorian has to make that choice. Just extremely well done. The moment where Pedro has to take off the Stormtrooper helmet and show his face so this computer will recognize and acknowledge him as a person, so that he can get the location of Moff Gideon's ship. Meanwhile, he's being interrogated by an Imperial officer who wants to know what the heck he's doing. And then the sequence with Mayfeld and this Imperial officer talking about Operation Cinder. I think it's fantastic. It's so good. And you're just watching, and you get to watch Pedro Pascal react to it all. Just sit there and watch this man who he had just written off as an Imperial. But Mayfeld shows us a lot about who he is as a person. It's a great episode. It's absolutely intense, and it sets everything up really nicely. And of course, the end of it is phenomenal as well, because we get Mando holocomming Moff Gideon and basically going verbatim with the ultimatum that Moff Gideon had delivered to the Mandalorian at the end, at the climax of season 1, when they're having the standoff outside of the cantina. And this time it's Din Djarin telling him that he has something that he possesses, something that he wants, and he's coming to get it. And it's great. It's so good. And of course, Giancarlo Esposito is fantastic as Moff Gideon. He says so much without saying a single word. His expressiveness, his facial features, all of it just dialed in. So good. Love it, love it, love it. And then, of course, we get to the final episode of the season. I am talking about The Rescue. And people have written essays, doctoral theses on this episode, and it's because it's stellar. It's top notch. It's hard to beat this. It is the pinnacle of The Mandalorian to this point. And unfortunately, it is the pinnacle by which everything else in the Mandalorian universe is compared to. Fair or unfair, I feel like that's what's happened in the years since. Everyone wants every moment of The Mandalorian to recapture that. What happened that first time that we watched this episode and we all lost our minds when an X-Wing fighter arrives. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Pure cinema. Pure cinema. You're right. Yeah. Seeing Luke doesn't hit quite the same way as it did like the first couple of times you watched it, especially the first time you watched it. But it's awesome. It's great. It's so good. And it's everything you want in Star Wars. Like, this is your connecting dot, right? This is the Jedi you want to see Grogu be with. Yeah, like Luke's out there. Let's do it. Let's embrace it. Sure, the deep fake tech on the shot isn't as good as it could be. We've seen that guy on the internet do a little bit better. But it's good stuff. Hard to go wrong. And it hits all the emotional beats that we wanted to. We're sad at the end, but we're happy at the end. And it leaves us wondering what's next for the Mandalorian, for Grogu. Like, is that the end of their story? Is like, what's going on here? Again, it hits everything you want it to hit. It's stellar. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. Season 2 of The Mandalorian is 10 out of 10. It's that gosh darn good. Even like the little things that annoy me, like Grogu eating Frog Lady's babies. I think he ate less than I recalled. So, but still, like, bad baby. Don't do that. Don't do that, my friend. But yes, season 2 of the show is the pinnacle. I don't know if it could get that good again. It just nails everything. It hits everything on the head. It's basically perfect. Again, nits to pick here and there, sure, of course. But good stuff. All right, friends, I think I've rambled on long enough about season 2 of The Mandalorian. Again, it is 10 out of 10. It is better than season 1. But check it out. And guess what? Tomorrow you're going to hear me talk about the Book of Boba Fett. That's right, friends. We're going to do that whole series as well. I've got some things to say, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And then with any luck, I'll get to season 3 of The Mandalorian right before that movie comes out. All right, friends. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, tolerant, patient, and amazing. Buckethead Nation, you are the best supporters on the internet. I thank you for all you've done to spread the word about this show and for being a great member of Buckethead Nation. Again, spread the word on the socials, Mando_Vision on X and Insta, MandoVision at Blue Sky, and you can email me, MandoVisionTom@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if you can, sweet, 5-star reviews. All right, Bucketheads, we'll be back real soon, real soon, to talk about the Book of Boba Fett and some very important stuff with the Mandalorian and Grogu. All right. Remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.